Science, as I said, was writ large. You had no place to stand in denial of it. They just sent you back to your garage. Because you had no audience, you couldn't gain adherence, because everyone knew that. That's the way you fix that problem. Not running after people, hitting them over the head. We tell ourselves this is a free society. People ought to be able to think however they want, vote however they want. But it ought to be an informed landscape. And if it's not, trouble follows. So,
how do we fight politics?
How do you fight politics?
Yeah.
How do we fight politics? Okay, here's the thing. I like that. I like that. I was going to give my very last line of this talk. I was like, roll up for it. It was like right there. But I'll put a pause in this and reply. Okay? As an academic, I'm an astrophysicist. Is what I do. Culturally, and I do other stuff too, obviously, but I am wired as an academic. I have academic values, right? Which is why in my Reddit AMA session, someone asked me, if you don't know what this, I don't know if I can explain it. It's a place where people go when they really should be doing their homework, but they just, and they pick some topic and they just have at it. And it is just so rich with energy and emotion and passion. And I was invited to give an Ask Me Anything session, where I just sit there and people just ask. And I'm just like firing out answers, you know. And I had 3 sessions, 3 hours each, and the last one was only 1 hour. That's like my AMA trilogy. In there, someone asked, I forgot what it was. No, I know, but there was something else. See, I forgot. Okay, hang on. No, about the politics. We'll get back to the AMA in a minute. About politics. In my culture, politics is a barrier between where you're standing and where you want to go. Every time. Every time. Okay? That's in academia. You move to Washington, D.C., politics is the currency. It is the thing. It is not a barrier, it is what it is. And so the most ineffective scientists out there are those who just bust into Washington and believe they can just put truth on the table and let it ride. No. It took me a while, but I think I understand the politics now. And so let me find the forces that influence politics. And you know something? Spending big money on space, that's a political solution, not a scientific one. Because science never drove space exploration. Neither did discovery, neither did the urge. It's in our DNA. Oh, we're Americans, so we're explorers. It is nature's. We must explore or we die. None of that has ever been revealed in the history of exploration. Or, I don't want to die, driver, money. I don't want to die, poor, driver. That's what it is. So, without the politics, nothing happens. I don't like it, but I accept it and understand it, and once you understand it, then act. Without an understanding, you trip, you fall on your elbow. I gotta beat you my carefully composed final sentence here. As goes the health of our space frontier, so too goes the economic, the emotional, and the cultural health of this nation. Thank you all. AMA story. Oh yes, I remember my AMA. If you can sit down back on the grass, thanks. So the AMA story, I said I'm an academic, I'm culturally an academic, and I'm wired as an academic. And one of the things an academic cares about is learning. And so when someone asked, what drives me? How do I derive meaning in life? That was one of the questions. Where do I get my meaning? How do I find meaning in life? What I said was, so many people, when confronted with that challenge, operate on the assumption that meaning is something that they find in weird problems. I found meaning, now I have meaning. The most fulfilled people I know are those who do not look for meaning from outside of themselves, but gain meaning from within. And so what do I do? For me, my two highest forms of meaning are that I know more about the natural world tomorrow than I know today. That's an academic feat. Okay? And for those who stop learning more tomorrow than today, what becomes of you? You just kind of stagnate intellectually, emotionally, physically. You should always know something more tomorrow than today. Second, as best as is possible, take time, however small, to lessen the suffering of others. That gives me to my life. I've already picked out my epitaph, inspired by this. A quote from Horace Mann. He's an educator, part of the school day there. Horace Mann. He said, "Be ashamed to die until you have scored some victory for humanity." That is something I believe we should all do. There's 6 people here walking up the sign saying, "We are the Physics Club." Physics in the house. Indeed. Now notice, you're sitting under a tree. Okay? That's okay when the sun is out. Not when it's light. Okay, so they got that one figured out. Okay, speak loud and I'll hear you go. What about inner space? You mean your brain? Oh, you don't know what you mean. Okay. The inner space, the oceans? The intersection between the environment and consciousness. Okay, sir, someone just accused you of being a liberal arts major. No, it's okay. If you go to the bookstore and go to the science section and look for books on gravity, okay, just find the physics shelf, look for books on gravity. There's like 4 books on the shelf. Go look for books on consciousness in this sort of the biology section, in the human section. It's shelf after shelf after shelf. When people keep writing about a subject,
good. How are you?
There is no greater evidence that they have no clue what they're talking about. We understand gravity enough to fit it into 3 books. We're done. On to the next problem. Okay? So, to combine the environment, which is something we all know and understand, it's something that people are still trying to figure out, and then ask, where is that frontier? I can't go there. Because we don't even understand consciousness yet. And maybe consciousness is not something that needs to be explained. Just because you can put the words together, the nouns and verbs and adjectives in the right sequence so that it sounds like a question, does not mean it's a question. Okay? It can be a question. No, I mean this seriously. There are some communities that will accept any question at all. Like, what is the square root of a pork chop? And they go into that. And what is the sound of one hand clapping? They go deep into that. I don't have time. I'm glad other people do. But in my experience, questions such as that do not actually advance our understanding. So until we understand consciousness better, the day we do, then come back and ask that question again. Maybe I'll have an answer. Or maybe that question will never get asked again. Maybe one or the other of those two will happen. Yes, right here. Dark shades. Louder. Yes? I mentioned planetary resources. What does that mean for the future of NASA and public and private space exploration? Excellent question. First of all, planetary resources. I commented on that on the Daily Show. Yeah, it was a 2-word reply, actually. That's what that was. You gotta look that one up when you get the chance. So billionaires got together. We all heard of them, Jeff Bezos and Jim Cameron. You know, he called me a son of a bitch. Jim Cameron. Because I made him change the sky over the sinking Titanic. He got it wrong. So in the version of the story where they included every word that he spoke, which was not all new, some news sources edited what he said. He said, yeah, he kept, after the edit, and that son of a bitch, he called me son, but it was in a loving way. Because he ultimately did change the sky over the sinking ship to be the correct sky, not the half-assed, made-up sky that he put there, thinking nobody would notice. So they want to go mine natural resources. If you bring an asteroid, maybe the size of this garden here, that's metallic, it'll contain more platinum than has ever been mined in the history of the world. Same would go for iridium. Almost be true for gold. Some asteroids have water. You would mine the water and put it into NASA in space. Otherwise, NASA has to launch that water from Earth's surface into space. It costs $10,000 a pound to launch something into low Earth orbit. $50,000 a pound to get it to the moon. If you could get water from an asteroid and hand it to NASA in space, charge them $30,000. NASA saves money. You make $30,000. Okay, this could be the first project ever to turn billionaires into trillionaires. Now, the guy who developed Tesla, Elon Musk, he's also the CEO of SpaceX. He's famous for saying, want to make a small fortune in space? Start with a big fortune. So it's not obvious that this will turn a profit. It's not obvious. Somebody's got to do it though. Because space has unlimited resources. Here we are killing each other because you happen to be living over a part of Earth's crust that has one resource and not another. If aliens came and landed here, and I told them the stuff we were doing, I'd be embarrassed. They say, well, how are you getting your energy? Well, we're pulling fossil fuels out of the ground. Will that run out? Yeah, that'll run out. Do you have a plan? No. Hey, where are you getting your metals? Well, we're pulling them out of the crust too. We have a whole asteroid. We got a space program, but we're not there yet. If you have a whole suite of launch vehicles, you do science on Mars, you do tourist draws to the moon, you do mining on asteroids, you visit the Lagrangian point, all the sources mountains, you build new structures there, you go check out Europa, look for life. You might want to also check out an asteroid that could be headed our way. Maybe protecting human beings from extinction could work for you in terms of a funding plan, right? Because you know that if the dinosaurs had a space program, they would have used it. I gotta tell you, really funny. Dinosaurs went extinct. You know, an asteroid the size of Mount Everest struck the Yucatan Peninsula, what is now Mexico. And it took out 70% of the world's resources. office to an audience. And I said, it hit the Yucatan Peninsula, but back then, the dinosaurs didn't call it Mexico. I said that, and somebody replied, they call it Mexico. I thought that was funny. I don't know. So there is a place for commercial enterprise. They will never lead a space frontier. I've seen comments on the internet say, oh, Tyson is a dinosaur in this. Of course, they have to lead. They're not reading my whole comment. They must not. Because I hardly ever made, contrary to what it ever has sounded like this afternoon, I hardly ever express opinions. I know. What I do is I give you an if-then statement, okay? The causes and effects of it, and you take ownership of it. I don't need to be referenced as you think about what I shared with you. Okay? I'll give you a perfect example. I am quoted on t-shirts. This is not related to space, but it's an excellent example of how people think I come out with opinions, but in fact I don't. There's a t-shirt that it says, quoting me, God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific degrees. deGrasse Tyson. Okay? Now, those words actually came out of my mouth. But it's not how it came out. It started out as if you assign God to every place where science has yet to tread, then God is an ever-receding pocket of science. That's an if statement. It has nothing to do with it. It is a true statement if that's how you define God. But people took the second part of that. It came out sounding like I'm ready to have a fight, when I'm just giving a sentence for you to contend with. Okay? So, with space, the private enterprise cannot lead the frontier because the frontier is expensive. The frontier is dangerous. It has unquantified risks. If you put all three of those factors together, you cannot exist in the capital markets. Because to raise capital requires someone plunks down money. And you say, here is your return on that investment. If you don't know how risky it is, you don't know what's going to cost. You've never done it before. You cannot get a capital valuation of that market. Governments do that. They have always done it. Columbus was not, there was some private money in it, but it was Queen Isabella's directive. He draws the map. He goes where the good Indians are and the bad Indians are. He draws where the edge of the world is. There was no edge of the world. He shows where the trade winds are. He comes back, reports on this. And the Dutch East India Trading Company kicks in. Then commercial enterprise takes over. This is what happened in the West. Gingrich got this wrong in one of his speeches. He said, don't give the money to NASA, give it to private enterprise because they'll lead the space frontier. No, and he likened it to railroads across the West. Lewis and Clark preceded the railroad. Right? Jefferson paid, find us where the valleys are, where the rivers are, where the mountains are. Map it, describe it, bring it back, talk about it. But fire the land. And the railroads came. That's how it is, that's how it's always been. So, there's certainly a place for private enterprise. My read of history tells me it has never come in unless it's a bad enterprise. But then it's not a business case. There's no business. It's do it because you can afford it, not because you expect a return on your money. So I took so long to answer this question. Do you mind if my answers are long? Or should I soundbite it? Should I go over? Okay. And remember, the folks here are kind of proxy for all you guys back there, okay? So if they mess up, just deal with them later. Oh, someone asked, how does it feel to be a meme? I don't know. It's 100% creepy. It's 50% weird, and 25% I just don't really understand it. So I'm flattered because basically the meme is a celebration. It's not, there's some ways that people can be mean-spirited, and I haven't found that with the meme. So I'm actually, I'm enchanted by it. But So, like I said, it's let's go right here, sir, the black shirt. Yes, loud. What area of science and mathematics should have more emphasis in schools? I can answer. Every area of science and mathematics. Now, I'm not saying that just to be politically correct. Consider the following. You walk into a hospital. There are machines brought into the service of diagnosing the condition of the human body. Do you realize 100% of those machines are based on a principle of physics discovered by a physicist who had no interest in medicine at all? What happens is they discover a physical principle, and this started ever since electricity. What do you think the EKG is? Monitoring electrical signals. The medical community has been highly exploitive of the discoveries of other fields. And it is the two together that is what today we call modern medicine. There are people who are saying, we don't need physics anymore, we want to live healthy lives, let's fund only the National Institutes of Health. Put the money right there, that's the Band-Aid. Put the Band-Aid, put money right there, and then we'll live longer. Do you realize the MRI, that's probably the most potent instrument we have today to diagnose your condition without getting going? Magnetic resonance imaging, that's based on the principle of physics called the nuclear magnetic resonance, discovered by a physicist, happened to be my physics professor in college. I had nothing, I'm just saying, he just happened to be there. He got the Nobel Prize for that. He studied the behavior of atomic nuclei in the presence of a magnetic field. He got the Nobel Prize. A medical technician says, wait a minute, I can take this and make a machine and put your body in, and there you have it. You can't script this. Do you realize that when the electron was discovered, people spent decades wondering if it would have any utility or use at all? Do you realize when Albert Einstein first wrote down the equation for the stimulated emission of radiation, was he thinking to himself, barcodes, yes! Einstein wrote down the first equation that enabled the laser, the light amplification by the stimulated emission of radiation. It is one of the first, right along with scuba, one of the first and greatest of the acronyms out there. So you can't script it, you do all the frontier. And what you need are programs that can cross-pollinate those discoveries. Then we can all benefit in ways undreamt of and unimagined. The last example I'll give you, suppose you are an expert in thermodynamics, study of heat, and I hand you a Franklin pot-bellied stove, and I say, here's $1 billion, perfect this stove. And you might put some insulation on the side, and the venting will be a little bit. Maybe you won't use wood, you'll use coal. Maybe not coal, but natural gas. Maybe not gas, but electricity. You invent the thermoprobe, so you know when the food is done. You can create a convective cell. You do all of this. And no matter how hard you try to do everything, the microwave oven, because it doesn't come out as that line of thinking. Our microwave ovens came from the development of high-strung and recyclable ignition technologies, not technologies to heat your food. So this cross-pollination is everything. In fact, it defines the existence of the iPod and the smartphones. It's got cheaper. Whoa! Give this guy a hand. Whoa! I missed like 2.5 seconds on that one. I could have done it like a relay, you know, just as I was saying. So this cross-pollination is important for all the science. Otherwise, we're going down. Time for just a few more questions. Again, you guys are proxy everyone else. So your questions got to be easy. Yes, sir, right here. Oh, wait, you began that question with a mom, and we are educated folk here, so I will drop you one question. We'll come back to you. When we do, don't begin your sentence with okay? Because if I don't hold you to this, the rest of your life will. We'll come back. Someone with the red shirt back here. Yes, sir. Did he begin with yeah. Go, wait. Okay, go. What do I think of Elon Musk's comment that he can send people to Mars for $500,000? Yeah. You got to put me back on that game show on The Daily Show, right? Because it was BS or no BS was my question if I would ask. No, that I think that's entirely, it's very wishful. But entirely unrealistic by way of any current or foreseeable technology. But by the way, this asteroid mining venture and some statements such as that have just the right amount of crazy in them, so that you say, all right, I'm not going to get in your way. Go ahead and try. But I ain't helping you get pay for this, all right? You just try it. If it works, I'll come behind, right? So they're just the right amount of crazy, but just the right amount if you want it to be true. And that's the law of physics. If there's no law of physics that prevents it, let it go. They try to say, we're going to build a perpetual motion machine, and we're going to self-propel without, and we're going to violate 5 laws of Newton. I'm saying, you know, not in time for this, right? So it's one thing to not violate a law of physics, it's another thing to believe you have the secret to the universe for heaven.
I know, I feel bad.
He just hasn't, he believes he can do it. I'm not going to stand it. Now back to, wait, no, right here, sir. Our own, we're going to give the home man a chance again.
I still think it's Sterling, Benning, whatever. What's the guy? No, I think some dude
The question is, and thanks for mentioning it, he heard that I will be hosting a 21st century reboot of Carl Sagan's Cosmos. It's been 32 years since that came out, and I don't even have any turtlenecks to wear to do this. But I did practice this. I'll say, I can do that. So, what we saw from the original series is that there were a lot of things that were just sort of ordinary science, which you can now get by virtue of many different black holes and relativity and so forth. So we're going to downplay the stuff you can get from other documentaries. Because today, documentaries are quite common.
Shut up now.
But what made Cosmos stick with us was the fact that the message.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Here's science. Here's why it matters to you, and here's why your science literacy
It's Terrace. I didn't realize I bought Terrace. I was buying regular.
Nope, that's cherry. Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's good stuff.
Not as something to recite back, but something to understand. Power to that level of knowledge.
I wasn't swiping it, but it went through it said. And she didn't know what that was, and I didn't know what that was. So she said, well, I can run it through and say, no, it's not.
When I die, what is my positive best case scenario for the future?
It went through. I don't know what that means.
Why do I have to die? Why is that a prerequisite for me giving a positive best case scenario for the future? In 50 years, right? Okay. I just don't know what my death has to do with my imagining the future. Okay, so. Okay, so here we go. I've written in my memoir that when I die, I do not want to be. When you were cremated, the energy
Hi, Danielle. Welcome. We're just waiting for
that's why you exist.
Yeah, this is the event.
molecules. If you
It's just so
the bonds of those molecules break, heat is created and the heat radiates to you. Yes, your energy is material. Yes, that's correct. However, I want to be buried. Not because when you're buried, your body becomes the food for flora and fauna, the likes of which I have dined upon and have granted me nourishment throughout my life. So in death, I want to give my body's nutrients back. That is what I want to do. Now, what kind of future do I want to be around? What is my vision? Here's my vision. Okay? My vision. Here's my vision.
almost like, you know, it's probably just they're making
I think there's a conduct, there's a treaty being handed out to control the conduct of space variation in space. The peaceful use of space. And everyone is very hopeful of it. They want all activities in space. I am not hopeful. You know why? Because what does it mean for, okay, down here we kill each other, but up here we don't? Like, what does that mean? If you can figure out how to not kill each other in space, why not figure out how to do that here on Earth? Okay? If you can succeed, then start with Earth, okay? Start with Earth. Right, see now, I imagine that most industry have been because of limited access to resources in one power. Given that the universe itself has unlimited resources, it might be that exploration of the universe itself is the first ever to rid our species of the urge to kill one another with primary.
I mean,
My vision for the future is possibly the world without war by resources of space.
yeah,
There's a fine point. We are killing each other with an asteroid. It is on its way to render us all extinct. So if someone can stop killing each other, we band together to Earth. So if we can't figure out how to stop killing each other, I want to Earth the asteroid sooner rather than later. Because that might be the rule of the end of the world. Right there with the glasses, yes. What is the most important thing I've ever learned? That became a viral YouTube video 6 weeks ago.
That was about 20.
Yeah, so you weren't paying attention. What you do is Google most amazing fact. Excuse me, most astounding fact. Okay. I got it wrong. The most astounding fact. I did an interview with Time Magazine back in 2008. They asked me three questions that the public had submitted to me. One of them was what's the most astounding fact, so I just answered them in their language, like until I give testimony in front of the Senate a couple months ago at my recent book, Space. I mean, a lot of this is just in that book. A lot of that's in that book, in the space book. So somebody, I don't know who the answer to that, but all the cosmic space industries can put a soundtrack, a music track to it, and it's really cool. It's it's like rising from 3 million views. And so it's viral for me. So just Google that. If you have a periodic table of elements on your chest, you are not a regular person. How can people spread the love? I think the fact that some videos go viral that people love, the fact that some people write events celebrating discoveries in space.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are out there.
People ask me, what would you do if you had this, instead of this? I said, I don't want to be any of it. As an educator, I want to influence the public so that they can choose a leader who is because if all you do is influence a politician, then 2 years later, somebody else is in that political seat and got to influence the next one. Whereas, if it is the public's mandate, then the politicians
I mean, he's not active. That's not been my brain. Yeah, that's probably what
You're standing in front of a manufacturer. But what is rolled up on your left sleeve? Cigarettes rolled up, are you like Bronzy or something? Are you? This is like very 1957. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a good example. Bart's mom must have been. Bart did his sales. And that's the sort of thing that your advisors do not allow. Like your advisors know when you're back, when you're ready to do it.
I had a breakfast problem at my house.
Okay, wait, is there a question?
No, not yet.
We're trying to get a question out of
No, there's no money.
In my case, it was they said they had babies that were the mother, and then they tried the mother, and then they said they were going to reunite the family.
Okay, so the question is, an important question. What are the ethics and what are the morals that should be in place adjacent to scientific discovery and scientific activities? At the center of his concern is that we are part of a fundamentally capitalist culture. And so that when you're capitalist, your priorities are not good and great. They're wealthy. They may know claims to reunite the family. It's just right. Maybe they're not as effective as they are. Maybe we need some extra support. This concern about sort of the moral, I see no moral problem with finding we have no moral problem with finding Earth. So if you had a problem finding Earth, then you have an argument against population. And then I would say, I'm a capitalist, I kind of embrace that. But I would say, you have the choice to live without the resources that mining brings you. Okay? And people do live that way. I think the Amish community lives that way. You can go hang out with the Amish, no one's going to stop you. I kind of like, the GPS. I kind of like the idea that we can fly to the direction because the universe is so huge. What we do want is planetary protection because we don't want to contaminate planet with life. If we lose the life on the planet. And if we really sample that for the planet, we don't want to contaminate the Andromeda strain, contaminate us with life form on another planet. So, I don't know that those ethics was just rooted on sense. I don't want to die trying to is kicking in. But otherwise, I can tell you that exploration is so I think we understand being worried about our own that is morally bankrupt, that is uninteresting. And if you read what science is not a concept. So someone says, let a girl ask the question. Yes.
I'm Lauren. I'm
Bob
Daniel.
Pfizer, Marshall K. Yeah, it was like, I know it was
Great.
active for a long time.
She's citing a study by the University of Michigan which found that young girls
Yes. The first person I recognized. So
entering the Senate.
we went to
Until the day when we have this big, large headline influencing what can we do between now and then to attract all people, all underrepresented, women especially,
Mark, Ashley. Super good.
Like a year before. You know, honestly, like,
that's a good trend line for whatever that is. Biology is chemistry is now maybe about a third.
I'd like to do
What I think
It's like my first year and then this year. I it's just like
right here, man, recognition for serious which is the best people like her who are non-science people. So, from a science program. Yeah. Do you realize that in the days of
You actually drink it? Oh, good. I grabbed it, but I thought it was regular Pepsi. That's what we had to protect him. Our random diet event was circulating, and he saw it like, that's me. I want that. That's for me.
the alien astronauts
I got told them that I really did very flavor. God, maybe we should give
if you
this
sift through that, they do
there
actually have
is
some
going to
good
be more
programming
for everybody, whatever. We just don't know the simplifying. We need to clear out some of the
NOAA has been around since the early 1970s. Privileged enough to be on science staff. So I think once again the trend line second class what is my name? Human body or someone said Don Pluto. That's right. You see moon, it's got the ball, the rings tip in their angles depending on where Earth's the rims. Love my button a little too much right there. So Saturn is like as our relative on its ships. Saturn is Saturn, look, when I was a kid, rubber Saturn to play with in my tub. Saturn, there's a mission at Saturn right now.
Thank you for joining the search. This is June of the outer rim of Saturn's atmosphere. If you look towards the center of the solar system, and there's the ring.
question. I don't know. So Saturn, sometimes don't
we had a very strong so we should be able to announce such music takes a while. Bureaucracy, put in a request, and then
this activity would 100% of the time be noticed by residents of adjacent properties. They would call the police, saying that there's a bazooka on top of them and I'm rappelling down the side of the neighborhood. The cops come up. This is now like 7. So there's sort of skin color bias.
Somehow it's trying to hire.
So they come up and they can see their kids around the country. What does he do? And they say, oh, look at Saturn, we smile, and they're both stirred, and the police join me in their respect and admiration. So Saturn has
Charlie!
from up there in the any of that up there has a question? No. It's the last question, so it's the best meeting. Does he have a question? Do you have a question?
There's also another architecture class. Yeah.
You have a question? Okay, you get a question? Have I been to the CERN reactor in Switzerland? No, I stood on the shores of America, heard crying, and he never funded our superconducting supernova. Okay, which, by the way, would have been 3 times the power of the CERN collider in Switzerland. We would have been doing this back in the 1980s. But it's budget on the entirely. It's hard Air Force. Why couldn't we afford it? Because in 1990, peace broke out in Europe. Where there isn't a war, there isn't a way. Last question. Green shirt. Last question for this afternoon. Sorry to come. What's that mean of me? How was me? Okay, go. Okay, how is NASA making the transition from the traditional fuels, chemical fuels, to more innovative it's not. It's just not. It used to have an innovation division. They cut the budget. It's not doing innovation. No warp drive, no ion drive, none of this.
We're easy. What's your other name?
How about that, right there? Next to the man folks. Go. That's okay. How old are you? You're 10 years old. Okay. When I was 10, I was like, check it out. You were in on your question. What are you going to do with that? Oh, why didn't I work to go to? Okay. He knows part of my.
Although they do have
And also I realized more and more that like
Sign it to me. I saw something.
But I think it's a great advantage of his
Late that afternoon.
oh my gosh.
One of our art faculty was even very which is this ancient technique. It's very difficult. It gives you an activity for stuff. It's hard to get it.
Yeah.